Hey guys, so excited to dive into this with you today. Local service ads, Google Guaranteed, great new medium that Google's introduced in the last few years, and really excited to jump in and tell you how to leverage it and get your best value out of it. So let's jump in.
So as Braden was talking about a little bit before, we are going to be talking about Google local service ads, and it is exciting because not too often does Google roll out a platform that is new, has a fresh take on it, and really gives us a different and unique opportunity to target the people that we want to talk to. Right. So what we're going to take a look at today is we're going to take a deep dive into what Google local service ads truly are. We're going to see how it works and how it's different from the Google ads that we typically have run in the past. We'll take a look at how you can jump on board if you haven't done so already. We'll take a look at what it takes to rank in the top 3 results, which is, as with any other Google program, the most important thing, right? You want to be in the top 3. And finally, we're going to take a look at how you can take advantage of the high quality leads that are coming through and how they are at a markedly lower cost per lead than the other platforms that are available to you. And so we can really maximize the return on investment that we get. And really, we'll take a look at how you can win using local service ads. Before we get into all of that, I think it's important for us to introduce ourselves and give you a little bit of a reason as to why it is that you would want to listen to what we're talking about and maybe give it some consideration. So my name is Phil Bartos, and I'm the owner of Branched Out Marketing. I have 20 plus years of industry experience within marketing of local businesses. I have also been the owner of Marketing Blends for 13 years right now, and Branched Out Marketing since 2024. So Branched Out Marketing was an opportunity for Braden, myself, and a small subset of the team to jump out and really focus in on an industry that we really enjoyed working with, which was arborists and tree services, right? So we took a small subset of the team and we went off and we built out Branched Out Marketing. Over the course of the entire time that we were working as an agency, we've had an over a 95% retention rate for our clients. And that's not based on constrictive contracts that keep people in place. Rather, it's based off of the fact that we are very much focused on delivering actual value and results at the end of the day to the clients. So the retention comes from being able to deliver the results to the clients and not through the contract. Right? Since day one, myself and all the team that we've built around us has been a big proponent of responsible and accountable marketing initiatives. What that means is that for every dollar invested into marketing, we really hope to have a return that is a multiple of that dollar to ensure that we're getting value out of the marketing initiatives that we take on. I'm now going to introduce Braden here, who's the operations manager at Branched Out Marketing, and he'll be talking to you guys in depth. We're lucky because he has in-depth knowledge of this platform. He works with it on a daily basis, and so I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll get back to it.
Hey guys, yes, as Phil said, I've been working with Phil for quite a bit of time now. I've been working in the industry for about 6 and with Phil for about 4. Primarily started out as a point of contact between our team and the clients, but my role has really derived from the fact that I really have a keen eye for analytics and digging out and figuring out what's working. And I pride myself on that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the number of clicks you get to your website, impressions or whatever. It's about the number of results and then how many of those are turning into business, right? And henceforth, my role has really become a lot more on the operations and delivering those results through campaigns, not only SEO, but things like local service ads, right? And so that's where my role has really expanded, and I'm excited to, again, tell you a little bit more about that today when we talk about local service ads.
When we started out Branched Out Marketing back in 2024, we had a fairly audacious goal, and the mission was to double the sales of 200 clients. And when we started out, it was kind of pie in the sky. And very quickly, as we started to work with more and more arborists and tree service companies, that goal became much, much more reasonable. And over time, that's become really what we are driving towards. And that is our raison d'etre, right? This is what we are striving towards continuously. Now, once we decided that that was what we wanted to do, the question became, well, how are we going to do that? So over the course of 13 plus years with Marketing Blends and then with Branched Out Marketing, we've refined what we call the accelerated growth model. And what this model does is really focus in on the three different elements and areas that marketing can have a direct impact on the business itself. So the first one is driving leads. And that's what most people associate with marketing, right? That entails things such as organic SEO, paid search, database marketing, really getting back in touch with the people that have reached out to you in the past or that have done work with you in the past. Maximizing conversions. That's the next component. Once we have people on our site, once we have people reaching out to us, how good are we at making sure that they convert into clients? So we can do that with website design. We can do that with reputation management. How do we come off in the eyes of the Google reputation, right? The Google reviews, other review platforms. That is a key indicator and a key decider when it comes to whether people or not will decide to do business with us. Automation. How quick are we to respond and how consistent are our responses when we have these leads coming in? And that's a big part of what automation can do. Optimizing results, the final element that we're looking at, and that's where we start to really dig in with the analytics, and that's something Braden's going to talk to a lot today, digging into the analytics to ensure that we have the appropriate return on investment, making sure that we're monitoring what our average cost per lead is and ensuring that it is within the benchmarks that are acceptable, and then keeping a close handle on what our total spend is, right? So all of those elements combined can ensure that we grow the business and grow the business profitably, right? We go drill down a little bit further into what we've talked about, the organic, which is the SEO, what we talked about, and the driving leads, right? We have the paid side, and that's what we're going to focus in on today. And that's really profitably tapping into the paid traffic sources. We've talked in the past about PPC and other platforms. Today, we're going to talk really specifically and closely about local service ads. You have the database side. On the conversions, we talked about website optimization, reputation management, the marketing automation tools that are available to us. And finally, when it comes to optimizing the results, we can take a look at the total spend, right? Making sure that we're not going above and beyond what we're comfortable doing. Taking a look at the average cost per lead. Are we keeping in line with what we've expected to spend based off of past results? Are we keeping in line with our average cost per lead as a benchmark across the industry in which we work in? And finally, the return on investment. Are we getting value in the money that we're investing in marketing itself? Further to what we talked about, it's really talking a little bit about the digital dominance method, right? And it is all of those elements work together to help us develop a very dominant presence when it comes to our online media, right? So search engine optimization, right? Repeats and referrals. Again, we can drive that source of leads using a lot of digital platforms. Pay-per-click, right? That's what we talked about in the past. Pay-per-lead, which we're really going to be looking at today with local services ads. Retargeting, social media, online directories, and email marketing. And if we have a good presence, and it doesn't have to be in all of these methods, but at least several of them, then what we are ensuring is that there's going to be continued lead sources that are coming in to help us keep that flow of business going. And so with that being said, I'm going to let Braden, the operations manager, come back in. He's dealt with local services ads on a daily basis, so he'll go through in greater detail this new platform that Google's been offering.
Hey guys, so let's jump in. So what are local service ads? right? As Phil talked about, it's a pay per lead. That's really what differentiates it from a lot of the other mediums like social media ads, like Google ads, where it's a pay per click, right? Its value, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is just tenfold because of that factor, right? And really what it is it's a newer medium that Google's introduced in the last 5 or so years. And we've really seen it expand in the last 2 or 3, especially in the arborist and tree service space, where we're recommending it to every and all client we work with because of its immense value, right? And really what separates it now is its positioning, right, with Google. So they've put it at the very top above anything and everything, right? So it used to just be Google ads, map, SEO, right? And you'd have 2 to 3 Google ads. Now you're seeing local service ads are Google guaranteed, and then maybe 1 or 2 Google ads, and then map and SEO. So it's really taken over and pushed down Google ads and kind of removed some of the value from it. But again, the value in this is just such a higher rate because of that cost per lead versus a cost per click, right? So let's dive into it a little bit more. So why does it matter? 87% of consumers typically go on Google when they're looking for home service providers, and again, especially in the arborist tree service space, we've seen that tenfold, right? It's the #1 place that people look for when they're looking for your services, essentially, right? Just like they talk about, they come up first, both on mobile and desktop, right? So they've really taken that Google ad place, and they don't even, as much as they say sponsored like Google ads, they don't look like ads. They look more like a map listing, right? So it's very interesting to see how they've differentiated it. There's no higher intent prospect than someone who's proactively looking for your service in that moment in time. And how I like to explain that a little more is taking Facebook as an example, right? If somebody's just scrolling their feed on Facebook and happens to come across your tree service ad and clicks at it, you're prompting that response, right? They're not directly going in and looking for that service. But on Google, like if somebody goes to Google, Yahoo, Bing, or whatever, they're searching for something. So yes, there is going to be the small percentage of time where they're looking for information, right? But when it comes to tree service businesses and arborists, they're typically not looking for information and then do it themselves. They're looking for a provider to do that work for them, right? To do the service. So you really got to have a plan if you want to win with Google local service ads. So let's dive in a little more. So how does it impact search results? I talked about that a little bit before. It's really trumped some of the Google ads, right, in its placement. So as you can see here, Right Tree Service and Green Thumb are the 2 listings, and then you see show more. There's going to be some other companies there, but then there's only one Google ad before it then goes into the map. If you see the right picture, that's the continuation of the bottom where it says businesses there on the left. But that's essentially, it's again making Google ads a little more redundant and harder to get value out of them, right? But that's where again the tenfold value of a local service ads really comes in. So how do you work? How do they work, right? How do you get it started? So you got to complete an application. It's a bit of a pain of a process because of sometimes all the documents they ask for and making sure that you're a verified business and business owner, right? It does say that you'll run a background check on you and your employees. In our experience, especially in the tree service space, it's usually just you and your business. So you don't really have to worry about your employees kind of getting involved with this. What it usually asks for is it asks for your business license. It'll ask for your insurance document, and then it'll do a background check. It uses a third-party provider called Pinkerton Consulting. Again, a bit of a pain, but we're quite experienced in that process. If you ever need help, we're kind of here to kind of walk you along. In our experience, depending on how quick you are to kind of gather that information, it can take anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. But in our experience, again, typically around 2 to 3 weeks is what it would usually take to get set up. Once approved, you'll be active in the areas that you set. Again, the service areas you're going to set within your profile. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then again, you're going to pay on a per lead basis, not someone clicking, just somebody calling or texting if you add both of the features available. And again, in our experience, it's usually around $25 to $45 per lead. You may get, again, text usually on the lower to 20 to 30 cent, $20 to $30 per lead, and then the calls I'd say closer to $30 to $45 per lead. These may change and vary per city and industry, but again, in the arborist tree service space, you're usually going to see $25 to $45. So how do you want the bid? So again, there's two options. You can manually set it, or you can kind of let it automatically done by Google. We almost always recommend letting Google do it. You're going to get your best value out of it, your best bang for your buck. You can also set a maximum bid. So typically in the space, we're usually recommending, I think it's like anywhere between a $30 to $50 maximum bid, because again, you don't want to be spending $100 for a lead, but again, it's usually not that case. So you're just making sure your bid is at a competitive level. So how are you charged? Again, it's on a per lead basis, but you're going to set a weekly budget that limits the number of leads you receive in a given week. We typically recommend, especially on the onset, setting anywhere between like $1,000, $800 to $2,000 of a budget. And then once you're kind of hitting that cap, and I mean, they'll actually tell you like, hey, you're hitting your $2,000, there's room to kind of grow that, right? At which point, if you kind of have the appetite to do so, that's when we'd recommend doing so. You're going to look at, again, on average, let's say $35 per lead. So let's say $2,000 budget, 57 leads per month, 14 per week, 2 per day. But again, once that budget is spent, you're going to go offline. Your ad won't appear any longer, right? You may get different leads from day to day, but you'll never spend more than your designated weekly budget of, again, in this case, like $500, right? You can, again, which we'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment here, you do have the ability to dispute leads if you receive a lead that you don't find is accurate or valid. In this case, something like someone applying, looking to get a job as a ground worker or something like that, right? So what leads don't count? Like I said, if it's someone seeking employment, if there's somebody trying to sell you a service, maybe they didn't even discuss your business in the call, those leads would be something you'd want to dispute. Again, in our experience, they have, with their call tracking and text, they usually don't charge you for these. So they do assess it themselves. But if you then do see charged, you can then kind of go in and dispute it. They have a fairly intuitive dashboard to be able to kind of navigate that fairly easily. Obviously, any spam, anything that was pre-recorded, wasn't from a live human. Maybe it's a location you don't even serve within your service areas, but somehow kind of the ad popped up and they called and you're like, well, I don't go out there. You can dispute that. And then again, if it's a service you don't offer, so maybe they're calling somehow for, I don't know how they found it, but they click your ad and they're calling for, let's say you're a tree service business and then they call for hedge trimming, right? And you're like, oh, I don't provide that business, that service. You'd be able to dispute that as well. So what's the feedback we've had from some of our clients? So again, it's a much lower cost per lead than we typically see with Google Ads. Again, if you're comparing anywhere between 20 to 45, let's even say $50 cost per lead of local service ads, typically what we're seeing on the very best end for really kind of optimized campaign that's been maintained for quite some time for Google Ads, you're looking at closer to $30, $35 on the very low end, but that can really go up to $60, $70. So on average, I would say with local service ads, you're hitting that $30 to $35 per lead, whereas again, with Google Ads, it's going to be closer to $45. So that's going to go a long way on a per lead basis. With that lower cost per lead. Not only that, you will get some price shoppers with local service ads, but for the majority of the time, just like with Google, you're going to see a lot more people just directly looking for that service. So it usually has a very good return on investments from the clients that we've worked with that are, again, jumping on board and maximizing their campaigns and leveraging the media. So why is this a no-brainer? Again, to us, there's multiple reasons why it is. When anyone's looking for a service, just like Phil talked about with any medium, whether it's SEO, Google Maps, if you're not appearing in that top three, you're likely not going to get the business, right? An example I like to always say, if you yourself were looking for anything, whether it's a service information, how often are you scrolling past that first three, right? Or going to the second page, not only that, or how much are you going to the bottom of the first page? You're not, right? You're hoping to find that information right at the top and then go on your merry way, right? So not only that is you got to be appearing in that top three, and to do that, you got to optimize your campaigns. So it's a no-brainer to make sure that you're leveraging this medium because it's now that top spot, right? It's now trumped Google Ads. It's ahead of Maps. It's ahead of SEO, and it's a pay per lead median, right? Which is, at the end of the day, you can't beat that, right? And again, lower cost than Google Ads. So it's something you always want to keep in mind. And again, you have the ability to modify your budget based on your schedule, increase it, decrease it kind of as needed. And again, making sure you're leveraging it to grow at the pace and speed that you kind of want to do. So how do you get set up? So you can sign up for local service ads using this link. Again, you can also just go to Google, search Google Guaranteed, Google Local Service Ads. Pretty easy to find that sign up. And then from there, we can go into a little bit more details. Again, we talked about it. You got to check eligibility to do that. Again, you got to make sure you have a Google My Business account. If you don't, you can obviously sign up and create one. Then you got to create your profile. And again, like we talked about, you got to upload those documents like your business license, your insurance, and then you got to go through to get verified and do that background check with Pinkerton. So if you work with us, we'll support you through that. Like I said, we've seen companies kind of jump on and have issues just even trying to set it up, or someone else has tried helping them set it up before and just kind of hasn't stuck. So we've kind of jumped through those ropes more than a few times and figured out a fairly seamless way to kind of get that going. So if you do need help, we're kind of here to help you support it through that. So how does the ranking work? There's multiple factors that's going to kind of determine whether you're placing those top 2, 3, right? Because if there's 10 plus companies leveraging local service ads, if you're not in those top 2, 3 consistently, right, you're really not going to get the business, because just like we said, people don't really scroll past. A lot of people aren't going to hit that show more button either, right? So how do you do that? Proximity is very important. If you're outside of a 25-kilometer radius of where your Google My Business is, so let's say you're in London, England, right? And then where you're trying to, that's where your business, Google My Business profile is outside of the city, right? You're only going to have a 25-kilometer radius around that, where you're likely going to get the most business out of it. Although, yes, you can put your service areas and expand that. What we've seen is it's usually not going to have the most effective reach with that. So you want to make sure if you're trying to reach multiple areas, maybe you're a franchise business and you're trying to select multiple major cities, that you might have multiple Google My Business profiles, and then so forth, you would need multiple local service ads accounts, right? So proximity. Not only that is reviews. I can't emphasize reviews enough. It's not only the number of reviews. Well, that is a factor. It's the consistency, right? So over a 90-day period, how many are you getting in that period, right? Like, start off small even and get, like, say, 1 a week, right? And try and aim and make sure you're getting 1 new review a week on your page, right? And then expand from there. But it's how consistent. If you get 100 in a day and then see nothing in 6 months, like, it's just not going to have that same effect, is getting that consistent reviews. And then, as you can see, it's bolded here. Your responsiveness to customer inquiries and requests is crucial. In our experience, we've worked with many clients where they're getting leads, or they're getting tons of leads, but they're not picking up the phone, right? You got to answer those calls. Everyone probably knows that people's attention span these days are just dwindling by the day, right? Like, TikTok is huge now, and their videos are like 3 seconds long, right? It's crucial to make sure that when somebody calls, especially through local service ads, you're answering the phone. And if you're not, it's going to make sure that you're not appearing in those top 2, 3 spots less and less, because it's just one of the ranking factors, and it makes sense with kind of how people's habits are these days, that it's one of the main ranking factors, right? Your business hours. So again, like I mentioned, the business hours you set within local service ads will determine when your ad is placed. So if you say 9 to 5, right, then that's the only time your ad's going to be active and visible when people search these terms, right? Like tree removal, tree service, whatever it is. One thing to keep in mind is you're like, hey, well, I want as many calls as I can get, and you set it to 24/7. If you're not then going to answer the call past 6 p.m., right? Just like I talked about earlier, if you're not answering that call, it's actually going to have more of a negative effect than a positive effect. So it's very important to remember that. Again, we haven't seen this case occur yet, but if you're receiving serious or repeated complaints about your business, that will obviously negatively impact it. Again, not something we've seen happen as of yet. But in addition to that, Google will, we talked about earlier, they'll try and spread out the leads for you so you're receiving them over time. So it's not spending your entire budget in, say, the first week or two. And to make sure that your ad isn't generating more leads quickly than your budget can accommodate, so to speak. So you may see your ranking affected your ads probably temporarily in order to more evenly spread out your leads. But again, that's something we'll kind of monitor and optimize and make sure your budget is being effectively used. So how do you win? How do you really dominate this side and make sure you're maximizing the most out of these ads, this medium, right? So have you dialed in your service area, your profile, and your budget, right? Are you marking your jobs as booked so that Google knows whether you're responsive to these, right? And are you dealing with your disputes? Like, you don't want to waste your money, right? So make sure you're checking that, and any call that you find that you've received from the medium is disputed and obviously refunded back into your account. And then reviews, right? Consistent, and make sure you're getting reviews in the door, right? And then target an 85% booking rate. It's a very achievable number from what we've seen. And again, most of the leads that come through this medium are ready to get the job done, right? So let's make sure we're targeting an achievable and that high booking rate. So how do you dial in your profile, right? What can you do to optimize it? So in local service ads, you set your budget, right? If you have capacity, right? These are the most cost-effective leads in a medium we've yet to see, to be honest. And it's Google, right? We know the power of Google. So open it up if you have the capacity. Update your ad schedule, your business hours, right? We talked about it. If you're able to and willing to answer the call, like past, let's say 4 or 5 p.m., open that up, right? Because I mean, I know I'm someone, if I'm busy during the day working, I'm not going to be looking for that service until after my work hours, right? So you don't want to be the ones missing that. But again, keep with a caveat is make sure you're able to answer that phone. Setting up your business bio. So again, this is a small factor that differentiates Google Ads, where Google Ads, you can obviously set ad copy and descriptions. There's not a lot of way to differentiate yourself outside of your reviews, right? And how long your company has been in business. But they have a few, I want to say 12 to 16 options that you can select that are called your bio, so to speak. So whether you're a womanly owned company, whether you're military background, right? The number of years you've been in business, right? Elements like that they're items you can check within your profile to help kind of determine your bio and differentiate yourself a little bit. Setting up your service areas, we talked about this, it's very important. You can do it in 2 ways. You can set it by location, as cities, or you can do it on a postal code basis. In our experience, you typically want to do it based on a city, but there may be a small area that you want to target as a city basis that won't come up within their search. So you might then have to add it in as a postal code so that you're still targeting that area. And then selecting the job types. So there's usually, I think, 8 to 10 different options as services within that general industry. So in this space, it would be tree, like arborist space. So I think it's tree trimming, removal, planting, transplanting, stump removal, etc. You want to make sure you're selecting the ones that you obviously provide and are relevant. Maybe you're like, hey, stump removal's $200 job for me the most time. I don't really want to pay $30, $40 a lead for a stump removal. So you just don't select that option and make sure you select the ones that are going to provide the best value for you. And then lastly is add photos. Make sure you're using a personal photo as your primary, but then making sure you're adding some photos so that you're appearing, you have that kind of leveraging within your ad, and other people are going to be doing that as well. So it's actually a ranking factor as well. So it's not something to just kind of blow off there. So why is it important to mark your jobs as booked, right? So like I talked about, Google will rate your responsiveness by how well you're completing your jobs. So you need to make sure you're marking them as booked at schedule, adding the customer details, including an email address if you can, and then archiving the non-converted opportunities to really, not only so you can see from your dashboard the best value you're getting out of it, so Google determines that because it helps with the ranking factor as well. How do you deal with disputes, right? How do you go about getting that. So again, you won't be charged for disqualified leads. So it's important to make sure that you're going in and checking if you get that. Again, in our experience, you're not going to get a lot of these, very few. The few we've typically seen is going to be someone looking for a job that happens to come across and go through the local service ads, right? Usually through the call tracking and the recording. Again, Google won't charge you and will kind of do it on your own. You won't need to dispute it, but it's still important to keep an eye on it. Again, you might get a call from someone outside your area or not a service you provided. So just whether you're working with us, you can let us know, or whether, again, you can go in and do that on your own through the dashboard. So why do we drive verified reviews? I'll continue to say I can't emphasize this enough. It's a major driver of your ranking in local service ads. Not only that, in your map ranking, and it does impact SEO as well, right? So it's important to provide great service. I don't think there's much to say more about that, but leverage the dashboard to drive those reviews. So as you're getting those, you can actually hit the request a review from these leads you've gotten to set it up to them there. You might already have your own system to get reviews. You might have something in person that you do after the job. So it's just important to make sure you're driving reviews. So targeting 85% booking rate, right? How do you do that, and what can you use to continue to grow? So you got to open up your budget. If you're not, if you have the appetite and you're ready to grow, I don't know if you'll find a lower cost per lead medium. I honestly don't. It's something you want to be leveraging. You can do that by expanding your service areas, right? So as an example, maybe you'll start with just Toronto, let's say, as a general smaller area, and then you'll expand that to Oakville, Mississauga, all the way out to Newmarket, right? As long as you're willing and able to service those areas, continue to expand it, right? Job types, maybe like we said initially, you don't want to target stump removal because the profit margin just isn't there compared to the others. But then as you're like, hey, I got the opportunity, I can continue to grow. Maybe you're not getting enough stump removal jobs and you have the machinery and you want to be getting more, you can throw that in, right? Your schedule. If you're saying, hey, we continue to have more appetite for jobs, but I don't know if enough people are calling with the hours we've selected. As long as you have someone who's willing and proactive to answer those calls past those hours, then increase it, right? Increase those business hours so that your ad's appearing when other people might be looking. And make sure you're following up with those leads and you're answering those calls when they come in so that you can close out every lead, book it, schedule it in, archive it, right, within the system. And then again, request verified reviews on every job, right? So to get that booking rate, it's really leveraging everything we've talked about. You got to dial it in. You got to get the reviews. You got to fight the disputes, right? Deal with them. And book those jobs. So if you want help, post Let's Talk, send us an email. We really want to help you not only set up these campaigns, but make sure you're leveraging in the best way possible.
Well, Brandon, that was awesome. Thanks so much for covering that up. And everyone, if you guys have any questions or want to get in touch, Braden's got his finger on the pulse when it comes to a lot of these platforms. He deals with them on a daily basis. So schedule a call, ask him the questions, and he'll get you the answers, and we'll be glad to continue that discussion. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.